Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Welcome to Week 5 Fantasy Football, where today we're talking about quarterbacks that we're going to start and sit here for this week. However, we got two things to cover real quick before we get into the Week 5 matchups. The first thing, we got to look at Week 4. How did we do last week at the quarterback position? We did pretty good. Out of the 32 quarterbacks we gave the starter sit designation to, 23 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 72%. Some of our biggest misses, Matt Ryan came out, had a decent game. Same with Daniel Jones, looking good with less options, right? And then Tom Brady was a miss because, I was expecting more from him going up against New England. Didn't really produce some of the biggest hits, though. Sam Darnold continues to dominate the NFL away from the Jets. Taylor Heineke out there dealing, and Jalen Hurts using that rushing upside to once again become a top option at the quarterback position. But now, what about October? We had a huge September giveaway for all the new signups for Prize Picks, but October, we've stepped our game up even more. I have a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. I have a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0. I have a mystery pylon from Pristine Auction, kind of like this Barry Sanders one right here, a mystery pylon from an NFL award winner. Plus, on top of all that, I'm throwing a $50 gift card to fanatics.com so you can get yourself some merch from your favorite team. Looking forward to giving that away. All you have to do, head over to prizepicks.com or download the app. There is a link down below in the description. You create a new account, use the referral code Headliners, make your initial deposit of at least $20, and you are entered. They're going to match your deposit, though, all the way up to $100. So get in on that now. You'll get yourself entered in that giveaway because I cannot wait to pick a winner for all of that stuff. Looking forward to that. But now it's time to head into Week 5. What is going to happen here this week? We're going to kick it off Thursday Night Football with a matchup here between the Los Angeles Rams and Seattle Seahawks. And honestly, I love starting off the week with some pretty easy decisions. And that's kind of what this one is, right? Matthew Stafford, Russell Wilson, both of them basically must starts on a weekly basis. Both currently inside the top 10 in fantasy football. Both teams allow over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Wilson has yet to throw an interception on the year, which is great. And Stafford has at least 2 touchdowns in all 4 games this season. You got big play weapons all over the field on both sides. Saw Bobby Trees sighting last week and loved to see that from Matthew Stafford. Huge ceilings on both sides. They haven't scored less, either one of these guys, than 18 fantasy points in a game so far this season. And that's why they're basically must-starts every single week, both Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford. Which will lead us to Sunday football, the New York Jets, Atlanta Falcons. And I know Zach Wilson hasn't looked that great this season so far overall, and you're probably not considering starting him just yet, but we're seeing flashes at times, right? Sure, he's got 8 interceptions through 4 games, and that is not good whatsoever. But at times, you can see something that he does on the field, and you're like, that was actually pretty good. We saw it a few times just this past weekend, but he's going to need some time to really mature. He really excels in a hurry-up style offense, a no-huddle type offense where he really relies on his instincts, scrambling outside the pocket, extending plays, making things happen. That's where we really see some of that potential upside from Zach Wilson. This week, he's got a matchup going up against the Atlanta Falcons, who allow right around 26 fantasy points per game, 3rd most in the NFL. Having Jamison Crowder back in this offense actually helps his floor on a weekly basis. He's kind of like a little safety valve. Plus, he's got the big plays over the top with Corey Davis. But right now, he's only averaging right around 12 fantasy points per game with all those turnovers. Until he really starts to figure that and protecting the ball a little bit more, he's going to remain a sit for Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons. He's played better the last couple weeks, right? 21 points a game over his last 2 games. Plus, the emergence of Cordero Patterson. This guy is like the answer to the offense. They can get him involved. They can't figure out Calvin Ridley and Kyle Pitts, but you know what? They figured out Cordero Patterson. Now, it is easier to run on the Jets than it is to throw on the Jets. However, they don't run very much in Atlanta, so they're going to be throwing maybe more short crossing routes, but still could be a nice nickel and dime game is what I'm going to say for Matt Ryan, where he's not going deep down the field consistently, but he's constantly eating up chunks of yards, constantly moving the chains, finding their way into the red zone, where possibly maybe there's a chance that Kyle Pitts gets some red zone targets and maybe even a touchdown this weekend. It's a safer floor, a limited ceiling, but I'm going to go ahead and start Matt Ryan here in Week 5. which takes us to Green Bay and Cincinnati. And Joe Burrow has looked really, really good here. 3 out of the 4 games of the season, right? I mean, he's really starting to gain confidence, some cockiness. We've seen some of the NFL clips where they're mic'd up and the guy, he's out there talking some trash, but he's actually backing it up on the field. And that is great to see, especially since he's been producing without T. Higgins. That's just one more weapon that he gets back eventually to raise that ceiling even more. Right now, he's top 10 in the NFL among all quarterbacks in passing touchdowns, yards per attempt, completion percentage, and pressured completion percentage. The guy is doing great with pressure in his face. The Packers right now allow right around 20 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. The Tiger King is out there showing his TDs, if you know what I mean. I'm going to head over to prizepicks.com, look up Joe Burrow, because right now his over-under for passing yards is set at 245.5. I'm going to smash the over in hopes we can get 4 quarters worth of passing here in this ballgame against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Like me some Joe Burrow this week. Same thing for Rodgers, though, right? He's finally starting to utilize Randall Cobb a little bit more, which we love to see because we know that connection between those two has been great forever since they've played together. Even the last time Cobb was in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers has no interceptions since week 1, really playing better, told everybody just to relax. He wasn't really worried, and now you see why. He's going out there and putting up big numbers with Davante Adams in the mix. You know the touchdown upside is going to be there. Really not even seeing Big Bob Tonyan very consistently. That's another red zone option. He's got plenty of weapons to put up great numbers, and he's super efficient with it. Potential shootout between him and Burrow. Going to start Aaron Rodgers as well. Now we were to the Lions and Vikings, and for Jared Goff, he's really not playing bad, right? I mean, he's not going out there and like totally sucking it. He's just got limited scoring opportunities, only 2 touchdowns combined in the last 2 weeks. No big play stud in this offense, right? I mean, we're using the likes of Quintez Cephus and Khalif Raymond. I mean, come on. There's no big play guys in this offense. They're not utilizing DeAndre Swift consistently like they really should be. I hear people out there saying, oh, they're trying to keep him healthy. Come on. No, not this early in the season. Not limiting that much. I can understand not going out there and giving the guy 30 touches, but to get the guy some of his lowest touches of the season in week 4, that doesn't make any sense. I just don't trust this offense overall. I spoke to Dan Campbell in the running back video. I'm hoping Dan is out there paying attention because I told him not to get too cute here. Utilize what you got. I'm going to go ahead and sit Jared Goff, though, against the Minnesota Vikings. For Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, he's kind of coming off a down week, but it was a difficult matchup for him last week going up against the Cleveland Browns. That defense still very underrated. As of right now, Kirk Cousins averaging right around 20 fantasy points per game, and luckily, the Lions allow right around 19 fantasy points per game. Is Dalvin Cook back and healthier? If not, more reliancy on the passing game with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, Tyler Conklin, KJ Osborne, plenty of weapons for big numbers and touchdowns. I'll start Kirk Cousins this week against the Lions. Over to the Broncos and the Steelers now, and Big Ben just looks horrible. Right? He kind of looks like what I think I would look like if I played quarterback in the NFL right now. Like, that's how I feel like I would do. And I'm not a professional athlete. He only has 4 touchdowns in 4 games this season. He's not mobile at all. Once again, like I said, kind of what I think I would look like trying to run away from an NFL defense. It's just not good. Now news is coming up that he's dealing with hip issues. His wide receivers are banged up. Now he gets a matchup against the Denver Broncos, who are number 2 in the NFL against opposing quarterbacks, allowing only 13.6 fantasy points per game. Not risking it this week with Big Ben. He's going to be a sit. For Denver, we got Teddy Two Gloves with a concussion. Now, whether he clears concussion protocol or not in time is the biggest question. There's already reports coming out that, they feel comfortable starting Drew Lock if they have to. Do I feel comfortable starting Drew Lock if I have to? No, I don't. Not in fantasy football. And here is why. It's not so much the matchup, right? The Pittsburgh Steelers allow right around 21 fantasy points per game. That's not why I'm not starting Drew Lock. Drew Lock had that job, then lost that job. He may not get very many chances to win said job back. So what is he going to do? One of 2 things. He's going to go out there and he's either going to be a total gunslinger and put up crazy numbers and really raise question marks, or he's going to go out there, be a total gunslinger and throw 4 interceptions and he just disappears into nothingness the rest of the season. I'm not willing to take that chance on that 50-50, percent of him going out there and totally bombing this week. So here's what I'm going to do. I would prefer to start Teddy Bridgewater if he clears concussion protocol. Something we really need to wait and see, though, as the week progresses. Am I starting Lock? No, I'm not. Regardless of what happens, I'm not risking it that much in week 5 of fantasy football on Drew Lock. Next, we go down to Florida for the Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom Brady last week against New England looked human, right? Maybe too many emotions he was dealing with. At times, he was forcing the ball into places that he just really shouldn't have. You could tell at times he missed Gronk over the middle and in the red zone. That's a problem a little bit, but am I worried about that going forward? No, I'm not. He's quarterback 4 overall in fantasy football, has 11 touchdowns through just 4 games. Now, yeah, he may not have Gronk for a few weeks, but a matchup this week going up against Miami, who allows right around 18 fantasy points per game, Brady at home, really trying to reinvigorate this offense that's kind of sputtered a little bit the last couple weeks. He's definitely going to be a start for me here this week because he's still got plenty of options, right? Got Godwin and AB and Mike Evans. Can they utilize OJ Howard and Cameron Brate a little bit more this week? Now they know they're probably not going to have Gronk. A bunch of opportunities there still for Tom Brady to go out there and put up some big numbers. So, of course, he's a start. For Miami, another week of Jacoby Brissett, maybe the last week of Jacoby Brissett, but it's much easier to throw on Tampa Bay than it is to run on Tampa Bay. It's a banged up secondary back there for the Bucs, but we're starting to see Jacoby Brissett utilize the tight end position a little bit more. Mike Gesicki really has the eye of Jacoby Brissett. Tampa Bay struggles against opposing tight ends as well. This ceiling for Jacoby Brissett may be a little bit lower this week. They really lack that big play ability, right? They don't have those huge scoring opportunities. We're really reliant on garbage points late. Could that happen this week? It really could, but in my opinion, just too risky to trust this week against the Bucs at home. So I'm going to sit Jacoby Brissett. Now we go over to Washington for the football team and the New Orleans Saints. And now all of a sudden, Jameis Winston is being outscored by Taysom Hill. Great, right? I mean, they're not utilizing Alvin Kamara in the passing game. What does that matter for the quarterback position? Well, they're running Kamara between the tackles a lot more than they ever have in his career. What's that doing? It's limiting potential dump down plays to Kamara, which we've seen him excel at in the past, making defenders miss and a big play happen. That's not benefiting the quarterback right now. And that's really limiting the potential ceiling. Their wide receivers on the outside, they're just too boom or bust and very, very big play dependent. Not so much touchdown dependent, big play dependent, right? They need that 50-yard bomb in order to really do anything in this offense, and that is somewhat concerning. Now we're starting to see Taysom Hill more and more and more. Over the last 3 weeks, his snap percentage has increased week after week after week. Heck, over the last 2 weeks of the season, Taysom Hill has more total touchdowns than Jameis Winston does. That's concerning going forward. It's going to be more of a split, taking away some of that touchdown upside, plus Taysom Hill hurting Alvin Kamara. Overall, not a great situation for New Orleans. I'm sitting both Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill as of right now. For Taylor Heinicke, though, in the Washington football team, this dude is balling right now. Everybody just wants to ignore Taylor Heinicke. We've started him here for the last couple of weeks. This guy is playing great football. Do you realize he has at least 24 fantasy points over his last 3 games? The guy is playing great. He's utilizing weapons all over the field, deep down the field to Terry McLaurin. Hate that he lost Logan Thomas. Also utilizing J.D. McKissick in the short passing game. We've seen big plays from Antonio Gibson. Plus, he himself, Taylor Heinicke, he likes to run a little bit. He likes to leave that pocket and boost that potential floor on a weekly basis by scrambling a few times for a few yards. Even if it's only 3 attempts, 4 attempts for 30 yards. Guys, that's 3 bonus points every single week that you really weren't banking on coming into the game. I love that potential upside. Plus, now he's going against New Orleans, who's pretty solid against quarterbacks, but they allow right around 17 fantasy points per game. At home in Washington, I'm going to start Taylor Heinicke once again. Now we head a little bit further south where we have the Philadelphia Eagles at the Carolina Panthers. And right now, Sam Darnold is quarterback 5 overall in fantasy football. 5. The guy is a completely different quarterback away from Adam Gase and the New York Jets. He's leading the league right now in rushing touchdowns. Sam Darnold, we knew coming into the season, we knew coming in out of the draft that he had that potential of scrambling outside the pocket, but it was nothing that he ever really had to do. No Christian McCaffrey right now. He's basically taking over and taking all the rushing touchdowns, 5 of them on the season. He has 10 total touchdowns through just 4 games. He's loving himself some DJ Moore, and with no Christian McCaffrey, he's finding himself throwing the ball down the field more and more consistently. Philadelphia allows right around 20 fantasy points per game. You better believe I'm starting Sam Darnold once again here this week. For Jalen Hurts, he's currently quarterback 3 overall. Plus, he's starting to throw the ball more and more each week. He had 48 pass attempts in week 4. Great numbers from Jalen Hurts. That's where we really start to see those ceiling days, right? Because we know the rushing upside is going to be there. If we can get more consistency out of the passing game, that's what boosts him up the ranks. That's why he's quarterback 3. He has 8 total touchdowns to only 1 turnover so far on the season. 6 points a game, just based off of that rushing upside. Just like I mentioned earlier with Heineke, 6 points a week just coming from rushing upside really helps that floor on a weekly basis. Now he doesn't have to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns to have a solid day. That really helps out. Carolina, difficult matchup. They allow right around 17 fantasy points per game, but with that rushing upside and starting to utilize him more in the passing game, can't sit him. You got to start Jalen Hurts. Now we go over to Tennessee and Jacksonville, and you know we like ourselves some Ryan Tannehill, but he really needs his wide receivers back, right? Kind of forcing it down the field a lot, just trying to stay in ball games without Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, who once again may be questionable to play this week, but they're going up against Jacksonville. Do they rest them once again? Do they really need Julio Jones and A.J. Brown to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars? The Jags give up on average 22 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks. Now, even if one of these guys play, let's just say Julio Jones plays, do they need to run him out there for a full set of snaps to beat the Jags? I don't know if they do, right? I mean, they didn't need him to beat the Jets. I mean, Tannehill threw the ball quite a bit last week. They may not need to do that against Jacksonville, and that's why I'm a little bit worried. However, they can't just run Henry completely into the ground. And now opposing defenses know that that's going to be a game plan, right? Heavy Henry, more defenders in the box should open some more things up on the outside. The big play potential may not be there, but the passing volume, maybe a touchdown or 2, plus that ability to scramble himself, gives him a decent floor. He's going to be a little bit lower in my rankings, but still going to be a start. For Jacksonville, it's really hard to trust Trevor Lawrence, right? I mean, he has only 2 touchdowns passing over the last 3 games combined. Now we got this whole Urban Meyer coaching controversy, things coming out with that. It's just a messy situation, right? Not that we're expecting a whole lot from the Jacksonville Jaguars, but Trevor Lawrence is not being set up to really succeed. Plus, now no DJ Chark. That's one less weapon at his disposal. Do they continue to utilize James Robinson on the ground a little bit more to take some of the pressure off Trevor Lawrence? That is once again entirely possible here this week. Not a bad matchup for him. Just can't trust it with all the turnovers and everything else outside of that. So I'm going to go ahead and sit Trevor Lawrence here this week. Now out to Houston for the Patriots and the Texans. And did we witness Mac Jones mature in one game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past week? I mean, he looked great. He went out there, he was poised, he was cool, calm, collected, with a lot of things going on in the background, right? Everybody there to see Tom Brady. How do you feel as Mac Jones being the guy that succeeded Tom Brady for the most part now in New England? That's a difficult situation for that kid to be in, and he came out and arguably had his best game of the year. He completed 31 of his 41 pass attempts for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Can they build off that momentum now going up against the Houston Texans, who are not good? I really think that they can. The Texans right now allow right around 24 fantasy points per game. It may sound crazy with the mixture of wide receiving options that they have with Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, the dual tight ends with Henry and Jonnu Smith. I'm actually going to start Mac Jones here this week and roll the dice. As for Houston, nope. Davis Mills, once again, I feel bad for this dude. It's difficult matchup after difficult matchup. Now he gets the New England defense, who looked pretty dang good last week against Tom Brady. Yeah, we're not starting Davis Mills in fantasy football ever. Now we head out to Vegas for the Bears and the Raiders. And as we continue the story of the Matt Nagy suckage, what happens in week 5? We saw Justin Fields week 4, but all along Nagy has said if Andy Dalton is healthy, he's our starter. Well, Andy Dalton's back at practice. Are they really going to start him over Justin Fields? Because I really don't hate this matchup going up against the Raiders. Not so much that I'm off on the Raiders defense, but their secondary is super banged up right now. Do we see a revolving door at the quarterback position where we see, Andy Dalton at times, and then certain packages we see Justin Fields, where we're limiting upside of both of these guys? That's possible. This offense is already iffy. David Montgomery is now hurt. Damian Williams is not 100%. And now we have the questions at the quarterback position. This is just falling apart for the Chicago Bears. I really wish they could just find one quarterback and commit to them for the entire season and really build chemistry, because we saw at times last week Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields were on the same page. If they could build off of that going forward, you could really have yourself a solid fantasy gem. For the Raiders, though, Derek Carr just continues to sling it on a weekly basis. 2 touchdowns a game so far this year, and he's had at least 380 passing yards in 3 of the 4 games so far. Why is that? Well, the Raiders find themselves falling behind a lot in the first half, and then they end up playing catch-up the entire rest of the game. It leads to big plays, it leads to 4 quarters worth of throwing, plus the running game hasn't been highly effective. Now you get Derek Carr at home against the Bears. I think I'm going to roll with Derek Carr this week. I mean, just the volume alone, being that Josh Jacobs is quote-unquote back and still somewhat inefficient, I'm looking for big plays to Ruggs and Waller all day long here in Las Vegas. I'm going to start Derek Carr. Now we go over to LA for the Chargers and the Browns, and Herbie has heated up, right? This is what everybody was expecting. After the first couple weeks, everyone's like, what's going on with Justin Herbert? Nothing. Stay calm. Quit freaking out in fantasy football, because now this kid has 7 touchdowns in just his last 2 games and no interceptions, playing great. We saw him excel just this past week, and he didn't even really need to utilize Keenan Allen or Mike Williams. Plenty of options in this offense, even with Jared Cook, Donald Parham as a tight end. Options for him to excel at. Plus, throwing the ball to Austin Eckler is really a good thing, and they have figured that out. But this is a difficult matchup for them going up against the Cleveland Browns, but he's playing too well to win. Too many options for any team to completely shut down. And when he's throwing it as good as he is right now, you continue to start him. For Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns, really not a viable fantasy starter. I think that he's a great quarterback for what the Browns need to win ball games, but it just doesn't translate to fantasy football, right? A lower ceiling, a run-heavy team, very few opportunities for throwing the ball into the end zone, limited weapons on the outside, right? We got Odell Beckham. They're kind of not on the same page. Missed him on a few throws that could have had a huge day, but the connection just isn't there right now. Can't start Baker Mayfield. That's right. He's going to remain in the sit column. Now we head out to Dallas for the Cowboys and the Giants, and we know we're going to start Dak on a weekly basis. Right? I can't think of really any situation, as long as Dak is healthy, that you ever sit the guy. He's really utilizing his tight ends right now. Amari Cooper, a little bit banged up. We know there's still no Michael Gallup. CeeDee Lamb's being taken away by opposing defenses, so he's really utilizing Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz a lot, and that's okay, because it's still working for him to put up huge fantasy numbers. He now has 7 touchdowns to no interceptions over his last 2 games. The Giants right now allow right around 22 fantasy points per game, so we know we're starting Dak Prescott. What about Daniel Jones? Maybe he's better off with less weapons. And we talked about this in the preseason, right? He had so many weapons coming into the season. We were concerned about his decision-making, being that there were so many options. Well, we don't have Sterling Shepard, and we don't have Darius Slayton. We insert John Ross and a little Kadarius Toney, and all of a sudden, Daniel Jones goes out there and looks a lot better. Plus, with Saquon Barkley being 100% healthy, that's only going to help raise the floor, because it gives him somebody electric and explosive to check the ball down to at times. I love the big play upside of Kadarius Toney, of John Ross, maybe even sprinkling a little Kenny Golladay. It's a very good mixture in this offense of underneath routes and deep routes down the field. Plus, you have the red zone threat there with Kenny Golladay. I like this offense a lot better, which sounds crazy because Sterling Shepard was playing great the first couple of weeks. Darius Slayton, not so much, but what we saw this past week really looked good for the New York Giants going forward. Now they're going to go up against a very difficult Dallas defense. Trayvon Diggs is an elite defensive back at this point. This kid is on another level. But I expect a lot of garbage points in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if once again Dallas comes out to a lead and New York is having to throw the ball all 4 quarters to keep pace, and we get those garbage points, which help push Daniel Jones over the top. He's going to be a start for me here in week 5. Now, battle the NFC West, San Francisco 49ers, Arizona Cardinals, and it's time for Trey Lance. Does he relinquish this role once Jimmy G is healthy, or does he take it by the horns and run with it right now? What do we expect from him this week? I expect flashes, right? As a rookie quarterback, he's still going to make mistakes, and that pass rush is no joke in Arizona, but the big play ability is there. We know he likes to throw the ball down the field. We know he has the weapons to throw the ball to down the field. Plus, that rushing upside is kind of similar to what we talked about with Jalen Hurts on a weekly basis. I expect Arizona, who is one of the highest scoring teams in all of the NFL, to once again go out and put up points. What that means, Trey Lance going to have to keep his foot on the pedal and throw the ball all 4 quarters, because really, there's no resemblance of a running game right now in San Francisco. A lot on the shoulders of Trey Lance, and because of that, I'm going to start him here in week 5. Same for Kyler Murray. You never sit Kyler Murray, but at the helm of arguably the best overall offense in all of the NFL, with weapons galore, the reinsurgence of A.J. Green, who looks like he's found the fountain of youth. We still have DeAndre Hopkins, not 100% healthy. We haven't even really had to utilize the likes of Christian Kirk or Rondale Moore as of late. Plenty of opportunities for him out there, though. Plus, once again, like a broken record, the rushing upside is there. The quarterback 2 overall in fantasy football right now. With those weapons at home and that rushing upside, fire up Kyler Murray once again. And that takes us to our Manscaped matchup of the week for the quarterback position, the Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs. Just a reminder, as soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com. Find yourself something special for your travel bag, fellas. Use the promo code Headliners at checkout, and we're going to give you 20% off your order and free shipping. Don't miss out on that opportunity right now. But for this game, oh boy, we get Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, 2 guys who are averaging over 23 fantasy points per game. Both high-powered passing offenses. Now, the Bills' defense, they're playing pretty good, right? I mean, the Bills' defense looks like it's on another level right now, and that's why I'm going to head over to Prize Picks and look at Patrick Mahomes, who's right now, his over-under on passing yards is set at 310.5. That's a little bit higher than what he's had here as of late. He's really struggling to utilize all of his weapons on a weekly basis. It's 1 guy a week. If Buffalo can figure out how to limit that, I'm going to take the under this week on Patrick Mahomes and say he throws for less than 310.5 yards against these Buffalo Bills. Right now, the Buffalo Bills allow the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks with only 10 fantasy points per game. Now, no, I don't think Patrick Mahomes goes out there and lays a total egg, but we may not see the huge numbers that we've seen in the past from him, but it's going to be a very fun game to watch both of these guys, definitely in the start column. Which takes us to the last game of the week, Monday Night Football, Indianapolis Colts, Baltimore Ravens, and Lamar Jackson and the deep ball are here. We're starting to see it more and more and more, and now he could be getting, arguably, in my opinion, his best weapon back in Rashad Bateman. How much do we see of him right now? Could be a slow increase in workload, but he's definitely right around the corner. And we saw these two connect in the offseason, and they looked great. Plus, Hollywood Brown's really not having an issue getting open down the field. He's really not. On a weekly basis, he's getting an opportunity at a big chunk play, even multiple touchdowns every single week. Plus, we know about the rushing upside of Lamar Jackson. However, over the last couple weeks, it's really down. He's only had 7 rush attempts a game over the last 2 weeks. Slightly concerning, but I think it's because they're finding that success over the top. The ceiling is still high, going up against Indianapolis in primetime TV where Lamar's going to want to shine. Got him as a start here this week. For Wentz, didn't play bad in week 4, not bad at all. He just has no consistency in this offense. It's 2 hit, it's 2 miss in a primetime game where he's been known at times in his career to falter under the bright lights. It's just not something where I want to take that risk, especially not on Monday night. There are so many better, safer options this week at the quarterback position that I'm not willing to risk it on Monday Night Football with a immobile Carson Wentz at this point. So he's going to be a sit here to round out week 5. All right, those are my starts and sits for week 5 for the quarterback position here. And once again, do not miss out on the huge Prize Picks giveaway. A signed Christian McCaffrey. I got it right here. I'm going to show you. I got it right here. It's a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, a mystery pylon from Pristine Auction, and a $50 Fanatics gift card. All you got to do, head to pristineauction.com or download the app. There's a link down below in the description. Sign up for a new account. Use referral code Headliners. Make that initial $20 deposit. They'll match your deposit all the way up to $100, and then we're going to make picks and make money together all year long. Looking forward to doing that. But do me a favor. If you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button. It greatly helps us out here on YouTube, and consider subscribing if you haven't already so we can talk football with you all year long. But hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.